So, ich bin von Schweden, aber ich habe ein paar Jahre Deutsch gelernt. So, vielen Dank an Rainer für das Hosting und diese fantastische Woche. Ja, ich bin froh, hier zu sein. Aber mein Deutsch ist nicht super fantastisch, so ich will jetzt auf Englisch wechseln. So, hi, welcome. I'm going to speak to you today about how to grow your business with proactivity. And the reasoning behind this is that there's a lot of chatter and talk about omni-channel and the benefits of omni-channel, but I think they're mostly focused on reactively handling inbound contacts to service your company or your customers. So I want to switch that. I want to make sure that we focus on everything. First, I have the mandatory explanation. What is Telia, for those who don't know us? We're the new generation telco based in Stockholm, Sweden, but we have operations in all the Nordic and Baltic countries. Just below 21,000 employees serving basically communication needs. We have 350 million annual interaction in the software platform that we provide with just under 80,000 users. And as you see, the presence are. And we're expanding also into more Nordic and European countries. So we're hoping to grow in Germany. But here we go. Outbound activities is the topic of the day. And how do I define outbound? Well, it's when you as a business wish to initiate the contact with your customer or member. It depends on type of business, but I'm going to use customer as our word for the day. Few examples of this. It could be a municipality needing to contact all seniors in the region. This could be the case now in COVID times. It could also be a car dealer wanting customers to book a tire change. It could be classic sales of your products or your services. And it could, of course, also be to book meetings for sales events. So all of these are typical outbound activities where you as the company are the initiator. If we look at a rather simple outlook on this, this is how the traditional flow is set up. You decide upon a campaign, you select your customers, you call the customers, and then you report on the closed deals. I don't know if you recognize yourself in this picture, but in my view, this is a really simplistic version. It's almost like children running towards their end goal. We're focused on this single task, we work in a silo, and we have no outside interactions or communications. You could, of course, end up using Excel and a phone. So these are some questions that I've heard or arguments that I've heard before. We use Excel, we call our customers, that's perfect. But can we guarantee that all customers are actually reached? Do you have a log that you've actually called everyone? There might be a need to prove or qualify that you have actually called them. If you are maybe an outsourcing partner or if you are a municipality, have you actually tried to reach all the targets needed? How do you know if your agents are doing a good job? There's no call recordings, there are no statistics. What if I delete the file? What happens then? Do you have a backup in place? Can all people work on the same time in the same file, or do we have issues there? Statistics, I've browsed on that part as well. And what's the calling number? Should everyone call from their own mobile phone number, or do you want to collect the inbound calls to one location so you can centrally manage them? Can the customers actually call back? Should that be an option? Should you allow customers to call you back? Should you present your own number or a group number? So these are some of the questions that you can have. And if you answer, I'm fine with all of these, go ahead, use your Excel. But otherwise, you need a contact center platform or a best-in-class campaign system. but you might end up in a multi-channel solution. Maybe you've tried to buy the best in class on all different items or services. Then you could be using super great systems, but you're working in silos. So we have a few words here, and we're going to see if you can map them out. In an omni-channel system, things are working effortlessly. It's integrated and it's also seamless. You can follow the customer through all the different channels, and you can have full control of the customer journey. As a customer experience consultant, this is hugely important to me. Otherwise, we end up like, in my private life, I had a renegotiation about my mortgage. And while I am in negotiations, I still receive advertising from them. It's a waste of money. It's a waste of customer experience. So they should know this already. They should pause that campaign, or should pause me in that campaign. And of course, since it's seamless and effortless, it's also automated. There's no need for manual input from your agents or team leaders. And on the other hand, if you're working multi-channel, you usually end up in silos. You need to change systems. You have lead time when you need to change things, or you have a team manager that needs to monitor things. And it becomes really inefficient if they need to tell Lisa, Steven, can you please log out from system A, log into system C, and work there for 10 minutes? So that's why we preach the usage of an omni-channel system, and also a true omni-channel system that has full media blending real time for everything, including campaigns. So here's a real example from one of our customers. This is a debt collection company. If you're familiar with their types of operations, they're calling, or they need to get hold of the customers who aren't paying their bills. So it's kind of a special situation where you don't really have the fine-tuned tact to just call once a week or something. You call them until you reach them. So they employ a dialer that calls automatically for them. And instead of putting 10 agents on the dialer and the other 40 agents on inbound chats, etc., they make everyone log into the dialer each and every morning. That means that they are prepared to call out, but of course, they have an omni-channel system with full media blending support. So the system automatically borrows agents from the outbound dialer to all different inbound channels. So they have no need for manual effort to move agents around. The agents are working and they are served with the contact that suits the business and the customers the most. As long as there are incoming contacts, they are served those real-time contacts. The contacts that can actually wait a bit, the outbound contacts, they are served as soon as there is a break. So this simplifies things for the workforce management department and also for the agent and the team leader. The team leader can focus on guiding the agents instead of tending to the system. And if we look at some guiding questions, so this was the first example, but how do I think that you should go about thinking about your business? The first thing I'd like you to do is consider, are you proactive, meaning you prepare and you initiate the contact? Are you reactive, meaning you have the perfect system set up, but you need the customer to come to you? Or do you have a combination here? I call it proactive reactivity, meaning you have a great plan in place, you can proactively react on something that is happening. It could be a customer that calls in. We did this with an insurance company. Customers that call in wanting to make a claim, they get an SMS in the IVR menu. They get the offer of an SMS with the link to the claims system online. So the customer initiates it, but you take back the control by guiding the customer to the correct place. And I want you to think about these three terms while we go through the rest of the session and see if you can map this into the upcoming examples. But the first question you need to ask yourself is, who should we contact? Our customers, cold prospects, so who's our target group for the different campaigns? The second question is, of course, how should we contact them? Should we call them? Should we email them? Should we have a banner ad on Facebook? What method of contact should we use? And of course, when shall we contact them? Should we contact them right after they have attended our webinar? Should I maybe send all of you an email after the webinar, or should we contact them in the start of each month? Or when is the proper time for each customer to be contacted? And of course, what shall we communicate to them? It's not enough to know when you contact them, but each target group or person maybe needs a combination of different communications to be adapted to them. And of course, you always need to test this. You need to test this. Is our communication good enough? Do we need a new sales script? Do we need a new offer? And also, have they understood our message? Me and my wife, we sometimes say to each other, I told you this yesterday, why haven't you done it? Maybe I wasn't listening properly. I just said, oh, yes, okay, I'll do that. But I wasn't really paying attention. I was busy with something else. Or which just shows the improper timing to relay our message. So you need to really think about, just because you've said it or informed it, have the customer really understood the message? So if you look at your platforms and your capabilities, you need to figure out, what channels do I have access to? What channels do my customer has access to? How can we make these channels integrated, and how can we use them? And how can you engage between these channels? So activities from the outbound or sales perspective, it's a teamwork between your different channels. It's not enough to just send an SMS and let it go and hope that the customer completes the order. If you go to your sales director and say, I hope it's done now, I can assure you they're not going to give you a thumbs up and a high five. So what I would like you to do is to go back to your own business and review, what channels do you have access to in your current solution? Do you have the needed channels? Are you working with those channels? But also you need to make sure, what services do you have that we can use within these channels? Are there any add-ons we should use? Do we have system integrations in place? And by using this, you can create your sales flow. So we can stop being in this naive, simplistic way of working where we just set up a campaign, call the customers, and report only the closed deals. I met an insurance company a while back that had an aha moment when they understood that they had never really considered the possibility of actually using all the non-reached customers, or the no customers that didn't accept the invitation or the sales pitch. They only reported the closed deals. The effect, they had been calling the same phone numbers, the same customers that had said no 25 times, and they called them the 26th time. Complete waste of customer satisfaction, brand trust, customer loyalty, and employee efficiency. But if we look at how we can use these building blocks that you have access to, here's one example. Catch abandoned. So what happens? A customer calls into your IVR menu or your company. Maybe it's on a sales queue, but for some reason the customer drops off while waiting this queue. You failed in your manning process or whatever it could be, but the customer dropped out. So one of our insurance companies, we helped them set up the interaction archive integration. So the system in real time looks for specific cues. If the customer drops out before talking to an agent, what should we do? In this case, they opted for automatic lead creation, where the dropped out number is automatically pushed into a sales queue. And then an outbound call is placed to the customer. Now, you could, of course, argue that that's intrusive. Maybe you then want to use the SMS channel. Hi, we noticed that you called us. Did you need anything? You could call us back at this number. Or do you want us to call you back? Answer with a yes. Or something. This is about you and your creativity. What can you do to re-engage with this customer? We have another example from the electricity sector where they needed to reach their customers and have them re-sign their expiring deals. They had a problem. They had a low answering rate when calling. So we decided to do a rethink here. We sent out SMS messages to the customers, informing them that we have an important question regarding your expiring deal. Of course, we needed to A/B test this to see how many customers, how they respond to different words and phrases, and eventually found the best words. So instead of maybe having 5-10% answer rate, we instead sent out a text message. In the final verification stage, we had 500 customers. We sent out 500 text messages, and 358 of them called back within 15 minutes. So this was, of course, more than we had anticipated and staffed for. So also you need to test things, test your theories out, and you need to really be crisp and precise in your message. Have you understood your message? A third example we have is smart routing. Again, it's from another insurance company. They decided to use their CRM system and their personas that they had available to them. All their customers had persona tagging, so lots of smart data in their CRM system. But what happens when the customer calls in? Can we use that data? Then you need to be able to integrate your contact center platform, your omni-channel platform, with your other informational data that you possess. So we set up this CRM integration together with them, and they could do a instantaneous lookup to see what's the personality of this customer. And one thing they did was to identify customers with a high churn risk. And they routed these regardless basically of what their choice in the IVR menu were. They could also adapt the IVR menu for those types of customers. And they routed them to a specific department with highly skilled individuals that only took the potentially troubling calls. So with that, they reduced the drop-off from churn customers. And they also noted how many personal insurances does this customer have. And they routed those with a sales potential to specific sales agents with specific sales scripts, and also added ability to create certain types of deals. So they increased the sales by 40% on this target group. So here again, you are reacting to what's happening, but you have a plan for it. Another example is from the bank sector, where they needed a smarter flow. So the bank had a need to shift persons to make them change their pension system from a fixed rate to a bond-based system. And if you're 35 or 25 or maybe even 50, this could potentially be the most boring thing you've ever done. So of course, the bank had troubles reaching them. The traditional calls didn't work. And it also had the added problem that you needed to sign a physical document and mail it in. E-sign was not an option for this specific use case. So we took our work block, our building blocks, and started thinking, how can we do this? How can we do this in a better way? The first thing we did was to send the customers an email informing that we're going to send them a postal message. And then, of course, the postal message was sent. And we're not sure, but it's not likely that all of these persons put this letter on the top of their work desk or on the kitchen table and said, yes, I'm going to read this. So we, of course, had to send them an email and an SMS to inform them that we now sent them a message. And a few percent actually followed the instructions, signed the form, and sent it in. So at each stage, there's a percentage of completion. But everyone that's still left in the loop, you need to have a plan for those. So the next step was actually to call them and tell them to sign the papers and send them in. And of course, some people are kind and say, yes, of course, I'll do that. Doesn't mean that they're actually gonna do it. Like when I tell my wife I'm gonna put stuff in the attic. It's been 2 weeks now, I haven't done it yet, don't tell her. Some of them had actually also, I don't know what paper you're talking about. They needed to send a new postal message to them. And repeat the loop. So you had different campaigns for this, where you move them in increments toward the final outcome. And you loop this until there's no real value in it. So you need to also track, is it profitable to continue with this? But the result of this was that we moved 600 million euros in 2 years with this bank. So it's a huge success. And I wish I could disclose more details, but I'm not allowed to. But really, set up your system. Use your channels. Think creatively. The final example is, yes, it's not the same as I will. Remember the building blocks? Can we make sure that the deal is actually completed? So if you have e-sign available, it's a really, really good way. In this example, we're using the channels you see on the right and the services you see on the right. The first step is to make sure that the customers can call you back at all times if there's a need for it. And of course, you need to have the final stage completed. When they confirm the deal, you need to confirm it somehow. So, step 1, import the customers to a campaign. Step 2, you call the customers, and those customers who are actually that okay the deal on the phone, you send them the written agreement using an SMS with a link to the e-sign platform. And of course, you need to remember to log this in the interaction archive so that everyone in the company knows that this is happening. Even your chatbots should know that this is something is happening here. This customer is in the sales process, meaning you need to account for that in the different stages of other operations. Maybe pause the sending of financial promotions. Third step is to have an automatic SMS reminder. If the deal isn't signed within a certain period of time, remind them. But of course, you can't go to your boss and say, I think it's going to happen. You need to make sure it happens. So you need to have a new step in your sales workflow where you actually have a structured way of calling all the customers that haven't accepted on time. So with the system integrations, you import them to a follow-up campaign. And of course, during all these steps, you need to have the integration in place so that everyone knows what's going on. I'm going to wrap this up with some key takeaways. I urge you to really review your channels that you have access to and that your customers are using. Review the services that you have. Are they integrated? What features can you use from them? And please remember to use a feedback loop. Make sure that all your systems and processes know what's going on and know the result. If you haven't reached the customer on this phone number 5 times, maybe it's the wrong phone number. And remember to be creative. Just because you've done it the same way for the last 10 years doesn't mean that it's working. And learn from best practice. So that was it. It's free for questions, comments, and everything.